Hey there, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Build Your Copywriting Business podcast. Hello, ladies.
Hi.
Hello.
Hello. So as always, we have my fabulous co-host, Miss Kate Sitars. Hello, Kate.
Hello.
Hello. I think that's 4 hellos for this episode.
So many hellos.
I love it. And then also, Kate and I are joined by a star CCA student and a pro copywriter, Tammy Taylor. Hey, Tammy.
Hi, everyone.
Hello.
Excited to be here.
We are very excited to have you here. We were chatting just a little bit, and I think there's before starting recording, and there's going to be a lot of really interesting stuff to dig into in your story. So let's take it on back to the beginning.
Yeah.
What got you interested in copywriting?
So actually, before copywriting, I was an elementary teacher for 6 years. I've taught first and second grade, and I always thought that was my path, and I did love it. But during my last year of teaching, I realized it was no longer for me. It wasn't healthy for me anymore. It was impacting so many parts of my life. So I knew I had to make that transition. And at the same time, I was living in Los Angeles at the time, and so many of my friends there are business owners, that creative life. And so one of them came up to me and she was like, "Hey, Tammy, can you edit this email I have going out to a client?" And I was like, "Sure." She figured, you're a teacher, you teach writing, you know grammar and spelling. She'd be great at this. So I edited the email, made sure it sounded great. It was a clear message. And then she kept asking me to do more. And then another friend of ours also has a business, and she approached my friend that first approached me and was like, "Hey, I have all these things I need edited for an English audience," because her business was Spanish first and her first language is Spanish. So she needed someone to edit all the English stuff, make sure it made sense for an English audience. And she was like, "I'm actually not that great at that, but I actually have Tammy edit some of my stuff. You should ask her." So she asked me, I was like, "Yeah, sure." So I started doing that, different random projects for her. And then another friend found out I was doing that, and then she asked me to do some editing for her. And so I would go home and I would be so tired from teaching and have lesson plans to still do, all these other things to do. But I looked forward to doing these little projects. And they're like, "Tammy, you should be getting paid to do this. You can get paid to write." And I hadn't really heard of that before. And they were like, "You should be a copywriter." So instantly I was like, I'm going to be a copywriter. And I didn't really know much about copywriting. I didn't know at the time anyone that was a copywriter. And so I was just like, all right, I want to leave the classroom. That's how I'm going to transition out of the classroom. That's my next goal. And so when I left the classroom, I would go on all these long walks. And on these walks, I would just envision my future. I was like, okay, I'm going to have this business. I'm going to be a copywriter. I'll have a website and clients, and I'll be working from home or really wherever I want. I'll own my schedule. So I had all these big dreams. I just didn't know how to make that happen. And so one day, I think I opened up Google and I think I typed in free copywriting course because I realized I was like, I should maybe look up some courses. And I found your video training, the free one. So I watched it. And then the rest of the day, I just thought so much about it. I just sat on it and I was like, "Oh, should I do this?" But I was like, I am going to do it because it taught how to write copy, which is what I needed. And then the second thing I needed was how to start a copywriting business. Because I always see so many people own businesses and my friends. And I'm like, how do you do this? How do you get people to buy from you? That just seemed like such a crazy idea to me that someone would want to purchase something from you. How do you get them to do that? So I was like, I really need to take this course because I thrive with action steps. And from the copywriting in your course, it said that that's something I would get. And so I decided the next day to sign up for the course. And then now I'm here.
That's fantastic. I love it. And I think maybe not that exact part of the story, but I feel like it's so many of us have friends that are like, "Hey, can you do this for me?" Yeah. Or, "Hey," it's and I think sometimes too, when we're naturally good at writing, we kind of take it for granted. Of course I can do, everybody can do this, but yes, I can help you out with this. I can't tell you the number, and probably you as well, the number of friends who'd be like, "Hey, can you do my cover letter for me?" Or can you do my, So I think it's really cool that not only did you say, "Yes, I'm enjoying doing this," but you also really leaned into it. And that's very cool. Yeah.
And so I'm curious in terms of transitioning from teaching to copywriting. I know you started picking up projects with friends that knew you could, do this and had editing skills and whatnot. But what was the transition like to say, were you just like, "I am leaving teaching and all in," or did you start building copywriting on the side, or what did that look like for you?
Yeah. So I knew I was going to leave teaching. Like I was like, hey, I already told my assistant school leader, my school leader, so everyone knew I was going to leave, but I didn't have my plan. I just knew that I was not doing, like I wasn't, how would I say this? Like teaching just wasn't healthy for me anymore at that time. And I just knew I had to leave. And I didn't care if I had this plan, if I had this other job lined up. I wanted to just take a break, honestly, and just kind of gather myself, breathe. And so I was doing those projects from the friends that were asking me, hey, can you edit this? Or can you write this? And so I was doing that on the side. They would come to me like, yeah, sure, of course. But then when I left teaching, it did take me a few months to just kind of settle in and take a break, breathe, and then figure out what I wanted to do. I was just so exhausted and worn out that I didn't really care to find another job in the moment or know what to do. I just wanted to step away and then figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what that transition was like. I know a lot of people are like, oh, you need to get a job. It's like, it makes the transition probably better to know you have something lined up. I was like, I'm going to figure it out. I had saved up enough money to be able to take that break. And so I was really grateful for that. And then, so that's why I was like, and then in May is when I started taking the courses. I took a few month break. Mm-hmm. And then I was like, okay, this is time. I'm ready to really dig into this and figure this out.
Yeah. Good for you for listening to yourself. Cause I think that I've been in a similar position where I left a job and it was just I hate to say toxic, but it was there was some crazy stuff going down at this company.
Oh no.
And it was similar. As I got out, I just couldn't I couldn't calm myself down. I couldn't, and so good for you for not jumping into something else. And certainly I don't mean to say that if someone leaves a job and takes another, everybody's situation is different, but good for you for listening to yourself and giving yourself that time. Because it would have been very easy to be like, well, no, I just have to get something right away. And so good for you.
Yeah. And that was the other thing too. I was like, okay, maybe I'll just get a full-time job in something in education. And I was really tempted to do that because I was like, well, I have all this experience in it. I should be able to, I hope so, get a job somewhere in education. And even last summer, I was thinking about that too. I was like, oh, maybe I'll just get this job and I'll do my copywriting on the side. But I was also I was kind of like, but if I do that, that's going to take away so much time from me becoming a copywriter. And I really want to make this pivot. I want to be a copywriter. And so I was really tempted to apply to all these jobs and be like, oh, I'll just do the copywriting on the side and do it later. And it's not like that's an awful idea because like if I needed money and I could get a job, but I knew that I had a little bit more time. And I was like, I'm going to make this pivot and be a copywriter. And so that was also like a battle in my head a lot though. Like I was going through that a lot in my mind, like just apply for this educational role, just do it. No, don't do it. Like you should be applying to copywriting roles if you're going to be applying because that's what you want to do now. Like you're going to be stuck in education if you don't. And so it just kept going on in my mind, this big battle. And so eventually then that's when I was like, I'm just going to apply for the copywriting roles. Mm-hmm. Luckily it worked out.
Yeah. It's super relatable though, because I think it's that comfort zone versus breaking out of the comfort zone. And it's so much easier in some ways to go back to that comfort zone and say, this is forget a career switch because that's a big deal. That's such a mindset shift to, so I feel like a lot of people will relate to that struggle.
Absolutely. Well, and especially because there's no wrong answer, it's not like it would have been a bad decision to take an education job and build up your freelance. It's not, I think that's especially when any of us are perseverating over a decision. It's often not because like, I know this is the wrong thing versus this is the right thing. This is one possibility. This is another possibility. And this one I know a little bit better. And this one I don't know as well. So that makes complete sense. Good for you for leaning into it, but you still, you would still been building up your copywriting on the side. Yeah. Just two different paths.
Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm. And so then from getting started, what was, and you learned and you practiced and you built your website. Where did you take your business from there?
So that was last May when I did that. So then throughout the summer, I was going through the foundation courses, started making my website. And then luckily my brother is a designer. So he was able to make my spec pieces for me. And then he was also starting his website. So in exchange, I did some copy for him. So it was great because I got to practice. And then he also, I mean, he's actually been a designer for a long time. He didn't need to practice. He was just really helping me out. And so I made my website. And then in mid-August is when I sent my first pitch, which was so scary. Even though like I had the formula, I listened to the videos, I was so nervous. But after you send the first one, it's just like, just keep going. So then by, I think like mid-September is when I had my first response. Yay. I just remember my jaw dropped. I couldn't believe it. I couldn't. And it was also because it wasn't just a first response. It was a yes to the discovery call. So I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this is happening. So by the end of September, I had gotten my first client. I believe that was the end of September. So then through October, I had a few other clients, but at the same time, I was really craving a lot more experience. I really wanted to work with other writers or have some type of mentoring from maybe a senior writer. So in October, I started applying to full-time work. So I was like, I'll get a lot of experience from full-time copywriting and having other people who are more experienced to learn from. So I kind of slowed down on the pitching a little bit and put a lot more time into applying to jobs. So then by mid-November, I landed a full-time remote job at an agency. So I was like, again, my jaw dropped also when I got the call for that. I couldn't believe it.
That's awesome. Like just for a second, like, so you started in May, brand new, started in May. And by November, you had been hired for a full-time remote position at an ad agency. That is awesome. Congratulations.
Thank you. I couldn't believe it. But also this course really does set you up for success. So the reason I prepared so much for a new how-to is because of the 3-part YouTube interviewing videos that you have. And then you have blog posts about questions to prepare to answer, questions to prepare to ask, the Facebook group and learning from other people's experiences. And so that I was really nervous going into the interview process. It was 4 interviews. And I was like, in my portfolio, I only had 6 pieces, 5 spec, and then 1 for blogs. Mm-hmm. So I was like, oh my gosh. And it was for a junior copywriting position. It was really great. That's me. Mm-hmm. But I was still so nervous that I have never been through copywriting interviews before. Mm-hmm. And I mean, the courses, I always tell everyone, like, they're like, how'd you do? And like I was really set up for success by going through and preparing, and also preparing the way you would for a client, like going through all their social media, their websites, looking at client work they've done. And it really does help. And even if the questions weren't necessarily what was said in the podcast or the blogs, the questions they were asking did have to do with the experiences we were learning throughout the course. And so I was like, oh, okay. It really made me feel like, oh, I do know some copywriting. I can do this. Like I am a copywriter. Yes. And then, so I started there in January. So they were like, oh, we'll have you start after the holidays.
Yeah. Oh, that's amazing. And so what kinds of work did you get to, you don't have to share clients if you don't want to, but like what kinds of stuff did you get to do?
So a lot of it was video actually. Yeah. So there was a lot of video, like when it would just pop up on the screen. So a lot of that. And for one client, all of their stuff was for paid social media. So stuff they were putting on Facebook and Instagram. So I would do their videos, their sonography and static ads. And then I started doing the captions to go along with the ads as well. And then random projects so the agency, they had their agency side, and then they also had their own platform for making interactive ads so businesses could use their platform. Mm-hmm. So for the business side, I was also doing their blogs and started writing their social media captions. And then I was also starting to work on some of their website stuff. So it's kind of just a variety of things, actually. That's why it was really cool. So I was like, oh, I get to try this out. I get to try this out. Like I hadn't done any video copy before that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's very cool.
Yeah, so it was pretty cool.
And then did you report to a creative director or a senior copywriter?
Yeah, so it was just me and then the senior copywriter. So we're the only 2 copywriters. So she was my direct manager. And then I was working with producers, designers, art directors, creative directors. I was like, wow, it was really cool because I got to see how many people actually are behind a project and like working with the client, going through the feedback cycle. And so that's, I'm like, this is exactly why I wanted this. to get this experience, to learn from people who have been doing this for a long time and really just understand what goes into an ad. Because I see ads all the time, but I don't really think how much work is going into them. Or like one headline.
Yeah.
It could take a lot of time. So
yeah,
I was like, this is exactly why I wanted this. It was really cool.
Well, and we have to talk about what ended up happening with that position, as certainly happens.
Yeah. So in May, just like so many companies right now, they did go through a round of layoffs, and my role was impacted. So I was laid off the first week of May. So it was definitely shocking. It was the first layoff I've been through. So I hadn't had that experience before. So it was like, oh, like I'm literally just done. Like, that's it. Just walk away. But then, so I took the next few days after that to just update resumes, my LinkedIn, my portfolio. And I did have to take a moment to stop because I was sad. So I was so proud of myself for getting that position. And also I had to take a moment and just be really proud of myself, because when I updated my portfolio, I mean, like I said before, I had 5 spec pieces and then blogs. Mm-hmm. When I updated, now I'm like, oh, I have so much more client work in there from just all the clients I've had, way more than the spec ads now. Mm-hmm. And so I was like, oh, like I actually did a variety of projects, different types of copy for different types of industries. And when I'm going into, like, making my resume, my LinkedIn, and messaging recruiters and whoever else I need to message, I just feel so much more confident, like having this experience. And it just, I remind myself, when I sent my first pitch, I didn't have that experience and I did it, and I was able to get clients and they loved the work. So now I'm like, okay, you actually were at an agency and you've got a lot of experience and learned so much. And now doing this again, pitching again, talking to recruiters, it feels different.
Yeah. Well, and if I may, you should be very proud of yourself for landing that job, and very proud of yourself for working there. The unfortunate matter is that when it comes to layoffs, and you probably have heard this term before, sometimes, maybe not, maybe even oftentimes, what they'll say is last in, first out, meaning the most recent hire is often the first person to go, which is very unfortunate, and especially unfortunate in your scenario. But that doesn't at all negate the fact that you landed a position in an ad agency, having started actually your copywriting training, like 6-7 months before that. That's amazing. You should be so proud of yourself. And quite frankly, too, if you eventually decide to work with, I'm sorry, I'm not to get into coaching, but I can't help it. But if you eventually apply to other ad agencies, that's something worth highlighting, and talking about your time in that agency and how you made that transition into that agency, because that is a big flippin' deal. So you should be very proud of yourself.
Thank you. I know I'm someone that I get so excited for other people. When things happen to me, I get excited, but then I forget to actually just really celebrate myself. So that's why I was like, you know what, let me just be so proud of myself for a second for doing that. It was because it was a little intimidating.
Yeah.
Especially starting out. I'm used to just, owning the classroom and knowing what I'm doing there. And so it was definitely a lot of learning, but everyone was so kind and really helpful. So it was a really good experience.
Yeah.
And I'm so happy too, because when I looked at so many jobs on LinkedIn and wherever else, a lot of them want some agency background. And so I'm like, wow, this really is still helping me. Like, it's not a setback. It's actually helping me move forward. So that's how I see it.
Yeah. And now you've got that agency background.
Like 4 months, but it was very nice. It was very helpful.
But 4 months still counts. Yeah. I mean, when you think of how much work you packed into those 4 months, right? It was probably all kinds of
when you updated your portfolio, it was probably like, oh my gosh, I did this amount of work. And good reminder to keep updating your portfolio. So you don't have to do it at the end.
I heard your voices in my head too, because I remember you said that in one of the videos, like always update when you get things. Even just for my freelance clients, I hadn't done that yet. And I was like, oh, this took me a few days. I was like, oh my gosh. But I was like, this is really cool also.
Yeah, exactly. To be able to fill out and put it all up there. And when you're done updating
it. Yeah. It's exciting, especially like since it's been a year since starting the courses. I do a lot of reflection because that's kind of how I see my growth. It's like, oh, I see that this is where I was a year ago or a month ago. And so I think about where I was a year ago and where I am now. I'm like, okay, like you did a lot in that year. Well, wonder where next year when I'm looking back on this year where I'm going to be. And so
yeah, exactly. So now what are you working on now? I think you said you're getting back to pitching. What direction are you heading? You thinking you want to stay freelance? Are you open to in-house or agency work again? What are you thinking?
I'm open to it all, actually. So right now so after I updated my portfolio and everything, I started pitching again. And then I'm also applying to full-time positions and contract roles as well. Because I'm still I still really want to be part of a team and continue my learning. And my goal is to rely on my business as my only source of income. So right now I'm going to do things differently than I did last time, applying and interviewing while also pitching. And then when I land a job, I will continue to pitch as well. So that way I can continue building my clients on the side. Because eventually, again, one day I want to just rely just on that. But right now, I would really, again, just still love. I was really learning so much from the agency that I want to continue learning from other writers and whoever else is on the team, really, to grow my background. And of course, just get some consistent money coming in while I build my business. Always very helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Well, and it can really be fun. I think we've kind of forgotten, especially since the pandemic, of everyone's, worked from home, whether you had to, or whether, or it's just the new option. But I think that a lot of us have kind of forgotten how much fun it can be to go into an office. And I know your last position was remote, but you now being in New York, this might be a surprise to you, but there are going to be a lot of opportunities. To go into an office in New York. And it can be really fun to work with the team and collaborate and really sit next to, with a designer, sit next to them at their computer, and the two of you in real time on a single in-person screen. Yeah. So that's exciting.
Yeah. And I see so many opportunities open in New York all the time. So I'm like, okay, good. I'm in a good spot to make this happen.
Yeah, you really are. Yeah. So are you leaning more toward as you apply for other positions? Are you looking for agency work again? Or are you looking for in-house, or what are you thinking?
So I'm applying to either. So I've been applying to jobs and pitching and doing some interviews. So it's some full-time, some contract. I'm really just open to doing anything. I wasn't expecting to be at an agency role earlier this year. So, and I learned so much from it. And I was like, okay, like I know like no matter where I end up, I'll end up learning so much. And I'm excited to see what opportunities are out there and see where I end up at. Yeah. And so I've just been kind of open to everything, kind of like reminds you like the niche thing, like just open to anything versus like just choosing one thing. But all I know is, I'm going to be applying, reaching out to recruiters, doing the pitching, doing it all at the same time and making sure I take care of myself. Because like you said, do not stop pitching. That was the big lesson I learned. I stopped pitching while I was at the agency because I had stressed myself out so much last year, like just making that transition, pitching, getting clients, needing to find consistent income. And so when I got the position, I was like, you know what? I'm just going to take a step back from pitching and just soak this all in. Learn. There was a lot of programs and things I needed to learn, all the clients I needed to learn. And so I really wanted to focus on that. And my plan was, okay, in the summer, then I'll start pitching again to start building up my clients. So they'll have about 6 months at the agency by that time. So I'll have a little, more confidence, be more settled in, but that didn't work out. So then I was like, hey, plans change. And so that was a really big takeaway is like, do not stop pitching, especially if your goal is to rely on your own business. And that was my goal. And I kind of, put the brakes on that for a bit. And I could see, like you said, if you stop pitching, you'll have some dry months. And so don't want that to happen again. So started doing pitching. And I just know going into the next role that things will be done differently.
Yeah.
That's okay. I had to learn it.
Yeah.
It's fine. It's fine.
Yeah. I was just going to say, like, you live and learn. And if there's certainly very few, if any, quote unquote mistakes, maybe missteps is an even better word, or miscalculations. They're not going to be brick walls, right? Like, you not pitching during that time is not going to destroy your career by any stretch of the imagination. Things like, yes, things be a little uncomfortable for a while, but you've got those skills. You know exactly what you need to do to land work.
Yeah. And I went back into the courses, actually. Let me rewatch some of these things and see and like go through and read pitches on the Facebook group again, using the resources that are there. I was like, oh, okay. Yeah, I got this. I can do this again. Like, I have my system set up and my templates. The courses are there to always, and that's what I love about the courses. I can always just go back into them at any time and just freshen up a bit. And so I was like, okay, yeah, I can do this. I had a discovery call last week. And it was my first discovery call from pitching again. And she was so sweet. She was telling me, she's like, oh, I had a really long day today. I was so busy. And I was like, oh, thank you for taking time to talk to me then. Cause I know after a long day at work, it'd be so tiring. She was like, oh no, it was the highlight of my day. And I was like, oh my God, like that made me feel so happy. And I was like, and again, it's like the questions and the way I present myself is just from the learnings in the course and just from other experiences in copywriting that I've had now. And I'm like, okay, like you can do this. Like you got this.
Mm-hmm.
You're not wasting someone's time. They want to talk to you. So we'll just keep moving forward.
A ton of value to offer. Yeah.
Yeah. So you mentioned a little bit earlier that the first pitch felt scary for you, which I know is not uncommon, even though I will emphasize again, oh, my friends, it's just an email.
Yeah.
But if you were talking to someone who is just about to send that first pitch, are there any words of wisdom you would give them or any advice?
I would say press the send button. There's so many times, and even sometimes I find myself doing it still, where I just sit on the same email. I'm like, oh, I just need to fix this one word, this one phrase I don't love. I know it could be better. And I just go through, and then it's been like 30 minutes. And I'm like, okay, if I don't press send, I'm not going to get a client. And I still might not get a client if I press send. They might not respond, or we might do a discovery call and they choose to not move forward with the project. But if you don't press send, you're not going to build your business. And you press send, then you'll learn how to make your pitches better. How are people responding to them? Like, there's time to grow. And so I think that's one piece of advice I had. I sat with that pitch. Like, I had it written out. I had already edited it. I was like, this is the best it's going to be for right now. But it took me like 15 minutes to press the send button. So I was like, no, let me just wait a second. No. Okay, now I'll do it. Can you count me down? Like, I was like so nervous to send it and like, just press send, because you're not going to build your business if you don't. So and it's not like the first one was only like that. The first few, maybe first 10, I don't know, however many, do feel really intimidating, but then you do just start to get into your rhythm. You start to tune up your templates for your pitches a little bit more and get them to a spot that you feel really confident in. And then it just feels natural. You just start pressing send. And especially, I think at first, for that first month, I hadn't gotten any responses. And so I was like, oh, it's okay. I'm like pressing send into the air. Like, it doesn't really matter. And then I started getting responses and I was like, oh, people are actually seeing them now. Okay. And then from there, I was like, okay, your pitches are getting responses. All that time you spent on them, good job, but also send them. Like, I took time, like after pitching, I'd be like, okay, I sent them. Now let me go through and see what I want to kind of fix up for my pitches tomorrow.
I love that. What you said of like, there's time to grow, because that's so true. I feel like we go in feeling like this is going to be perfect. And this is how it's going to be for the rest of my career. And it's so not true. I look back on like things I wrote, paid pieces. And I'm like, wow, like I got paid to write that. And future me says like, that wasn't that, like, that's not my best work. But like at the time, like it served its purpose. So, but I feel like that's such a relatable thing with whether it's pitching or client work or whatever, like you're going to keep growing and get better and better. And the only way to do that is to hit the send button.
Yeah. To just do it.
Yeah.
You'll get the feedback. You'll learn. And as you get on the discovery calls too, sometimes they'll tell you like, oh, like, this is why I really wanted to respond to your email, because like one person was like, oh, you spelled my name right. And I was like, oh, like that was like part of like personalizing the message, and the fact that I guess people don't spell their name right, or just you hear different things from people too when you talk to them, and sometimes they'll tell you like why that pitch was effective. So
yeah,
you never know.
So true. I had a client once who was like, you followed directions. And I was like,
but of course,
doesn't everyone do that? But like, no. So I feel like it's a similar thing. Like, you spelled the person's name right. But clearly lots of people don't take the time. So like, just that little, like what you always say, it's not going the extra mile. It's going like the extra inch to make sure like things like that are,
That's amazing. Oh, this is so exciting.
I know. I can't wait we are going to have to do a follow-up.
Yes.
Just we're roping you into that now.
Yeah, we can do let you know what I'm up to now or later.
Yeah. We'll schedule it out. Yeah.
We'll reflect on this past year.
Yeah. Now, if someone is listening and they're thinking, oh, this woman's amazing. How can I hire her to write for my business? Where can people find you?
They can contact me through my portfolio or my website.
Awesome. Yes. And we will put that in the show notes. So, well, Tammy, this has been awesome. Thank you so much for being transparent and sharing the high notes and the low notes, and now heading back into those high notes again.
Getting back into it. My word for the year, I know when we did, I forgot what it was called in the beginning of the year.
Right start.
Yes. It was growth. I really felt it. And I usually don't pick words for the year. I'm not that kind of person that does that, but it just came to my mind. And I was like, oh, I'm going to get this agency background. I'm going to grow my business. And so when the layoff happened, I was like, but no, my word was growth. I was supposed to keep going and growing. But I was like, it's okay actually, because it's kind of helping me step out of my comfort zone again, to go back and to find other roles, to pitch again, to maybe people that maybe I wasn't as confident to pitch to before. And so I just feel like I am going to continue growing. Like this summer, I really feel like, okay, I'm going to figure it out. And by the end of this year, I'm going to look back and be like, wow, you really did grow. You grew your experience, you grew your business, whatever else comes along the way. I'm excited to see what happens.
Yeah.
Just keep going.
Yeah, exactly. Just keep going. I mean, there's a lot of growth that comes from bouncing back from a layoff. It would have been very easy for you to sit in that and feel bad for yourself and think, well, maybe I'm not.
Or go back to teaching or
go back
education.
To teaching.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Maybe the univerose took you a little bit too literally, because that's a lot of growth.
You want to grow, Tammy? We're going to make you grow.
Yeah. I was like, oh, that's a tough one though. Come on. We had it. We're already there.
Yeah.
I know. That's the tricky thing about growth, is sometimes it's tough. But truly, I am so impressed. We are so impressed by the way that you have continued to take action. Like it's so impressive that you landed your agency job, but it's also so impressive that even with that layoff, that you're like, okay, I'm going to shake it off. I'm going to dig back into it. Truly, it is something to be proud of.
Yeah, that you reflected on that agency and took the days to say, you know what, like instead of being sad, to be proud, because that's I love that. That's my big takeaway. Next hardship, flip it to
Thank you. And also just thank you for everything, because I like the reason why I'm in where I'm at now is because of all the resources and the learning in the course. Because again, I was going on these walks and I was like, but how do I do it? And what are these steps? And because of it, I was able to pitch and grow a business, something I never thought I would have. Because again, I was like, how do people have a business? That just seemed like such a challenging task. And so thank you for everything, and all the podcasts and the blogs, all that stuff. I'm looking at them all the time. Like, okay, how do I do this?
Yeah.
How do I answer these questions? So it's really nice knowing that I have resources, and that Facebook group is just the best to lean on.
Yeah. Well, thank you. And good for you for taking action. Like all the resources are out there, but you consume those resources and you took the action. So good for you.
Thank you.
All right. Well, Tammy, thank you so much for joining us. I'm already excited for our next call with you and to see where you are. And I know that this has been really helpful for our listeners and our viewers. So I really appreciate you taking the time to be on here today.
Yeah, of course. I was really excited to share my story and help other people. So hopefully it
does. I guarantee it. I guarantee it. Hey, everybody. So this is just a little postscript to the episode you just heard. As you know, when we ended the episode, Tammy was waiting to hear about a job she was really excited about. So Kate and I are just as excited to share with you Tammy's update. I'll read you a lot of what Tammy actually wrote to us to send the update. So she says, I'm excited to share I've accepted a junior copywriter position. I actually told Nikki and Kate about this role when we recorded the podcast, as you guys know. And at the time she was waiting for the offer. Now, the initially disappointing thing is that they actually went with another candidate first, but that candidate had real estate marketing experience. Tammy didn't, and that's hard to compete with. But she got to the point where it was between this person who had real estate marketing experience and Tammy. So Tammy then said she told the recruiter and the manager of this role to reach out if they had any future opportunities. So as of the time that she wrote this, almost 2 weeks ago, the recruiter reached out saying they had another opening and asked if I'd be interested. I said yes and had a meeting with the manager. It wasn't an interview because she'd already interviewed me before. So it was just a conversation about the type of copy that I would write. She completed the copy test and they offered her the position. And then she also has a discovery call with a potential client tomorrow. She says that she's really excited, and her soon-to-be manager said she was excited when she heard that Tammy was interested. So she's glad that the previous interviews left a positive impression on her and on the hiring manager and of Tammy. So Kate and I are thrilled for you, Tammy.
So cool.
Congratulations.
Yeah. And thank you for sharing with us too.
Yes.
And yeah.
Thank you for sharing.
I know we sent this back to Tammy, but for everyone else, I think it's just such a proof of when being persistent is really such a key to success. And obviously Tammy's wildly talented and all of that. But the fact that she, as you heard in the episode, just like her mindset was so positive and inspirational, and to see it pay off is just, it's good for you, Tammy. I'm just so happy and thrilled. And I think everyone seeing this I hope that your takeaway is that you can do this. It's just when those hard moments come, it's the difference of quitting or saying, you know what, I know why I want to do this and I'm going to keep going.
Yeah. And even if you get a no from a potential client or a potential boss, it doesn't mean that that's a no forever. You never know what it will lead to. So stay positive. Certainly when I'm sure that Tammy was a little bit down when she got the first no, but look at what she came back with. And she didn't even have to go the extra mile. All she said was, hey, just let me know if you ever have a role like this again, which quite frankly, to a company, to a manager, to an agent, means a lot. It sounds like it's such a little thing, but so few people do it. So Tammy, good for you for being persistent, for being positive, and congratulations on landing this role. Like what you heard? Hit subscribe so you never miss a video. And if you're ready to take the first step toward becoming a copywriter yourself, sign up for a free video training right here.